In the last video, I left you with a little mock-up of a tool that I, made real quickly. So I'm gonna throw these plates into the acid bath, make sure that those are ready to weld, and I'm gonna move on to the last pieces that I need to actually complete this tool. So I'll get those designed, cut on the plasma table, and then by the time these are done soaking and free of all the rust and everything, we'll be ready to weld that up and possibly start folding some aluminum. So that's what's on the agenda for now. So what you just saw me cut is basically gonna serve as the backbone to the pieces I left you with last night. So that sort of, I don't know, weird U-shaped piece is gonna be the lower part of the die. It's gonna actually help to draw in a flat piece of aluminum and fold it in, and to keep that located in the press brake and to give it some structure. That's where these come in place. So there's a notch in there to actually locate and send a material. There's tabs to locate it so it's fixed in the lower die, the tray for the press brake. So last thing I'm gonna do is kind of tighten up some corners here to make sure that the materials sit nice and flat. What I forgot to do was kind of give myself a little bit of an offset to the tube. It's like an exact fit, and that usually doesn't always work out well, so I might have to open up these radiuses a little bit. But other than that, I'm making pretty good progress on this tool that I've been dragging my feet on for, I don't know, 6-7 months. I'm gonna tighten up on the bandsaw, throw them in the acid dip, and then we'll figure something else to move on to while those are stripping all the mill scale off. And we'll weld it up and move on to the oil cooler tanks. So I'm excited for that. While those plates are soaking in the acid bath, I'm gonna switch over to the RSX here. We've got to get this thing done too, even though it's not Saab related. If it's not done and ready to leave for the dyno by the 14th, then I can't start my car, and just one more reason that I won't be able to go. So I've got to focus some time and attention on this. Right now, the thing that I'm gonna jump on first is I'm gonna power up some sensors. I've had this entire dash, all the wiring down, torn apart. Somebody put a remote start in this, and it was hacked together with, trailer connectors and wire nuts and pounds of extra wire that is just unnecessary. So cleaned all that up, and what I'm left with now is power for all the gauges and I believe the boost control solenoid, and they're all going to go off of a 12 volt ignition switched power source. And that was kind of the reason I even got into the dash itself. I was really just looking for a switched 12 volt source off the ignition, and then found I can't even tell you the bird's nest and just bad connections. I'm honestly surprised that this car didn't catch fire. So got that cleaned up. I dropped down a power source, and now I'm going to tie it all into a single 12 volt power source lug. And the problem with that is it's technically a hot, it's a hot lead. Anything falls on it, that's grounded,
That could cause sparks, fires. It's a dangerous thing. So I've got to pick a spot that's tucked away and hidden. Nothing should be able to fall onto it. I'm gonna cap it so that, you know, if something were to fall on it by accident, it should be safe, but I want to take every precaution possible. So for that, I have the center console taken out, and I'm gonna go ahead and mount a power lug there, run all of the power connections to that, and then it's just a straight simple source. If everything's gonna be a low draw, so I'm not worried about, you know, amperage, you know, anything issues with that. So I'm gonna plug that away, you know, get that done so that I can kind of move on and start getting the dash, the interior, all the stuff back together, because I'd love to have the interior back together so that I can go back to just focusing on the engine bay. It's kind of been this whirlwind situation where it came in for intercooler and charge pipes, and it was just this cascading effect of like the next adjacent thing that I was working on was a nightmare, fix that. And then it just kept going on and on. It's been this big loop around the whole car, right back to the fuel pump, and it's sort of hacky. They ran an extra fuel pump relay and larger gauge wire, and they literally ran it from the engine bay through the door jamb, along the floor, and above the carpet to the fuel pump. And just, it never ceases to amaze me. But it's all fixed now. Just got to button up the loose ends, so that's where I'm at the moment. So fortunately, this lug is pretty well tucked away under the center console. It does have access through the cup holders if anything ever needed to be, you know, inspected and, you know, checked or added to or removed, whatever the case may be. It's got decent access, but it's also hidden away. So in order to get this going, I'm actually going to cut away some of the sound deadening that they added in here. And then I'm going to drill and tap in the tunnel here and add two, I guess not tap, but I'm gonna drill and add a couple riv nuts, nut certs, whatever you wanna call them, to mount this up, and then start running wire into that.
Okay, still on the RSX, and the next thing to check off the list is the boost control solenoid. This one's gonna be pretty simple install, I think. Gonna hide it in the cowl area, kind of up high, out of any kind of moisture or stuff like that that might accumulate. So I've went ahead and modified the boost control solenoid. Now I'm just going to mark a couple hole locations in the cowl area and nut and bolt it up. Pretty straightforward. Once I do that, I can kind of run some vacuum and take care of vacuum leaks, and we're that much closer to starting that up. So hopefully by the end of the day, I'm going to crank that up, and getting this done gets us there. Well, that wraps up the brake booster, the vacuum supply for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that up in place. And then the last thing that I have that's kind of keeping the engine from firing up, at least as far as the motor is concerned, is one more vacuum. That is the evap system. You know, we deleted all that system early on, and now I have nothing that's really plugging that hole. So to take care of that, I'm going to see if I can't make some kind of adapter that's going to use a barb fitting that I can just supply the fuel pressure regulator off of. So I'm gonna go and throw this in place. At least the wastegate actuator, the blow-off valve, and the brake systems are taken care of as far as vacuum. And one step closer. I'm dying to get this done because it means as soon as this thing fires up, I can get straight onto my car. So. Fortunately, some parts just arrived. Now the super detailed stuff that I can't do, the very intricate thin stuff that doesn't work so well on the plasma table, I actually have a company called Send Cut Send do a lot of those ultra thin pieces. So wheel spacers, hub spacers for the 9.5 Brembo Cobalt SS caliper kit just arrived, so I'll pack up and get some of those orders shipped out. And just for reference, if you have one of these, if you're curious what those are for, you have kind of two options. You can either cut the rim off of your dust shield to fit the bigger rotors rather, or you can use these spacers. Just whatever is best for you as far as usability and whatever centers that rotor in the caliper. That's what you're trying to accomplish here. So in any case, I'm gonna start boxing a few of these things up. My phone died, so a lot of interesting stuff happened, and I just wasn't able to film it. So like, I got that lower die for the oil cooler end tanks all welded up. I'm letting that cool down right now. I got to flush back some of the welds on it, and then I'm going to, I think, start forming up those end tanks. At least get one of them done and finished out. But yeah, I'm gonna package some stuff and get it out to you guys. All right, so my phone died again, unfortunately. So I carried right along, and that meant I actually finished the lower die for these oil coolers that I'm planning on making and reproducing in the future as part of a kit. So now that this piece is done, as far as I'm aware, done, I got it kind of lightly polished and buffed out a little bit so it's smooth. Let's go take it over to the press and see if I can't get the shape that I'm after with this thing. So let's take it over. Unfortunately, not quite perfect there. So on the right track, pretty close. I mean, it's not a fail. I just need to go a little bit further than what was actually achieved there. That needs to be a 180-degree bend. And I got to figure out how I can optimize what I have here already to do that. I think the side walls need to be a little bit taller, but I got to deal with that another time. Moving forward, I think the idea is actually annealing these beforehand. That'll make folding it a lot easier, and then I can kind of work with it a little bit more by hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and anneal this one and the end tank for the other side, and come back at it and do it again and see if I can't get a little bit more shape out of it. So let's move on to that, I guess. All right, well, that was a success of sorts. The tooling did what I needed it to do, just not as well as I needed to do. I made the mistake and I forgot to account for spring back, and that's when, you know, any material is pushed but not quite past the point of yield where like it just can't spring back. It has, you know, no more memory, so to speak. So as I'm shaping it with the die, I'm not taking it past the point that it's going to spring back into the final shape that I need it. So it takes a little bit of hand manipulation there to make it fit like I want it to. But success is a success. It's going to work for the job that I have specifically for this right now. I need to make at least one oil cooler. I'm probably going to make 3 oil coolers out of this tooling before I retool and correct for that mistake. So I'm gonna finish on just some close-up shots of what we got here. Tomorrow I'm going to modify some AN fittings to be what's welded into the end tank. It's gonna be a dual pass, so just 2 fittings one side. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to see this one finally come together. It's something that's been in my head for probably about a year. And then it opens up the next part of, okay, now I gotta make the oil cooler bracket. So maybe tomorrow I'll be on that. We'll see what happens. But again, I'm gonna call it a night, finish up on some close-ups.